I think one of the things that makes DIY in Oakland distinct is the type of spaces available to the DIY community in Oakland. And that has to do with the very particular history of late 20th century deindustrialization in Oakland, which left behind a lot of warehouses, foundries, creameries, and various kinds of derelict, semi-derelict, or vacant commercial space. And as early as the late 1970s, you had artists gravitating towards these spaces because, for practical reasons, because they're cheap and they're spacious and they're often in neighborhoods that can accommodate a lot of noise. And then for more spiritual reasons as well. For example, one of the earliest groups of artists who really settled in Oakland warehouses were people associated with industrial or modern primitive culture in the early 1980s. So that would be people like Zev and people like Monty Kazaza, people like involved in survival research laboratories. And I think that this post-industrial husk, these warehouses, resonated with them on a creative level because their work was addressing similar themes or using similar imagery. So it's taken a long time to get where we are, in other words. These spaces afford artists an amount of relative secrecy, and these spaces afford artists the opportunity to collapse the division between their work and their life. These are spaces where they sleep and where they throw shows and where they make things by themselves. And I think a lot of DIY anti-capitalist artists like to don't believe in this life-work division, and these spaces sort of allow them to break down constructions like that.
It was 11:32 p.m. when the first calls came in. A party at this Oakland warehouse at Artists Collective was exploding into an inferno.
The ghost ship warehouse fire left 36 people dead, the most fire fatalities in the country in the last 13 years.
In the wake of the ghost ship warehouse fire, what many artists feared is coming to fruition.
Following the deadly fire, artist communities now feel they are a target for officials who might rather shut them down than get them to code.
I think it's just an example of a lot of places in a lot of cities that are just under the radar.
One of the things that led up to Ghost Ship is the fact that, Oakland is being rapidly redeveloped, it's being rapidly gentrified, it's, one of the most expensive cities in the country. And so, one of the many consequences of that is that the spaces where the DIY community has traditionally flourished in Oakland, there are fewer of them. immediately after the ghost ship fire, we saw a crackdown, as it's been called, from really what I'll call three main directions. And one is city officials who want to be seen doing something to prevent another tragedy. Ousting people from warehouses only means that they're more likely to end up on the street, or they're more likely to end up in a less safe living environment, or they're more likely to leave Oakland. Another thing we're seeing after the ghost ship fire that's really important to recognize is a lack of self-awareness from the arts community. I've heard artists publicly say, "We're the heart and soul of Oakland," and that just makes me cringe. That's, blindingly not self-aware. It's embarrassing. Because the truth is, Black people have been violently, systematically displaced and ousted and discriminated against by the city, by landlords for decades in Oakland. And artists in recent years have a lot to do with that. They're also used by landlords, but they're very much complicit in the forces that, have ousted Black people from Oakland. And I think that, as heartening as it is to see artists come together and help one another after the tragedy, it's really disappointing to see them not recognizing how a similar thing has been happening to other people in Oakland for decades. And, it's important not only to recognize that, but it's important to learn from that.
John, you're a pro, man. Pro. I watched you. You're like really good. Seriously. You should see Brandon. It takes him like 10 measurements. Tape measure walking back and forth,
That's how you're supposed to do it.
No. I mean, yes, but no. I agree. There's a technical way, but then
No,
there's
that's how you're supposed to do it.
the Purple House way.
Did you see the stairs from the bottom yet?
No, I haven't.
You better look.
You
can walk on it. You can walk on it.
I don't want to get it dirty. I know my feet off. Woo!
See the gold?
Dang. That's shiny.
That shit's gold.
You got bling.
Definitely bling.
Maybe we get some light, I don't know how much though. Not much. think like we live in a country or like environment where things are valued based on like how they can be marketed or how they can be like an economic way, and I think it's just like not so much like a reaction to that, but just an alternative to that. Like I don't think that makes good art if you're just like thinking about the like sellability of it or something. So it's cool to have like a community of people that are like supportive but also critical, and also to have your own like feedback loop that's like more based on your values rather than the ones you were just kind of born into. And I think it has its like pitfalls just like any other community or any bigger one, but it's still like inspiring to see people using their imaginations, and like constantly reevaluating and like redefining what is important to them. In the US anyway, to me, there's not this idea of the arts as being something that like we really benefit from. I think it's kind of like thought of as like a hobby. Even though people consume music and visual art all the time, I think they think of it as like, I'm not sure, there's just not this like culture of like having a history for that or like an appreciation for that. A lot of these spaces can survive because I feel like there is something like intimate and like important about like seeing performances, or also just like inviting people into your home, and like your home being this museum and your home being this like venue and workspace, and just like rather than compartmentalizing it,